When I first met Robert Hayes, he was 67 years old, a retired school principal from Portland, Oregon. He had always been known for his calm authority and easy smile, the kind of man who could walk into a noisy classroom and somehow bring it to a hush with just his presence. But the day he came to see me, that confidence was gone. His shoulders sagged, his steps were slow, and his eyes held that quiet look of worry people carry when they know something isn't right. Robert told me that over the past 2 years, he'd noticed a change he couldn't ignore. His once quick stride had turned into a careful shuffle. Climbing stairs left him winded. And perhaps most upsetting to him, lifting his granddaughter had started to feel like hoisting a bag of concrete. He said the final push to seek help came one morning when he tried to open a stubborn jar of jam. In years past, it would have been nothing, a twist of the wrist, a small pop, and breakfast was served. But that morning, no matter how hard he tried, the lid wouldn't budge. His hands shook, his arms trembled. And in that tiny, frustrating moment, Robert realized something had been quietly stolen from him. His strength. That was the day he decided to get answers. The tests confirmed what I suspected. Robert was experiencing sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass and strength. It's something that creeps in quietly, often mistaken for just getting older. But in reality, it's a change that can rob a person of independence if left unchecked. For Robert, the diagnosis landed like a weight on his chest. He thought about his father, who'd spent his final years in a wheelchair after repeated falls. He thought about the small joys, playing catch with his grandson, lifting groceries into the car, tending his garden, that suddenly felt fragile, almost out of reach. And he thought about the promise he'd made to his wife, Ellen, to stay active so they could travel together in their golden years. I could see the mix of fear and determination in his face. He wasn't ready to give in. Robert was a man who believed in taking action, but he needed a clear path, something realistic, natural, and sustainable. He told me outright, "I'm not looking for miracle pills or fancy gym memberships. I just want my strength back. I want to feel like me again." That's when I explained to him that while sarcopenia is a natural part of aging, it's not an unstoppable one. The right approach, especially the right nutrition, can slow it down, even reverse some of its effects. And often the solutions aren't exotic or complicated. They can be found in everyday foods if you know which ones to choose and how to use them. So we began his journey. It wasn't about overhauling his life in one dramatic leap. It was about small, deliberate changes that added up over time. The first thing I taught Robert was that food isn't just fuel, it's a partner in your health story. Every bite you take sends a message to your body, telling it either to build up or break down. And as we get older, we have to be more deliberate about sending the right messages. That's where certain nutrient-rich foods, the ones I call muscle guardians, come in. These are the foods that don't just fill your stomach. They actively protect your muscle fibers, feed your cells, and give your body the building blocks it needs to stay strong. Robert listened intently as I explained this. He nodded slowly, the way people do when a truth finally clicks into place. It wasn't about eating more, it was about eating smart. I could tell this idea appealed to him. He'd always been a practical man, and the thought of rebuilding his strength without endless workouts or complicated regimens gave him hope. Together, we looked at the foods he already enjoyed, and we found ways to make them work harder for him. Little changes, swapping out white bread for a protein-rich grain, adding a handful of nuts to his afternoon snack, choosing a different breakfast that supported muscle repair, began to form a plan that felt both doable and encouraging. But the journey wasn't just about food, it was about mindset. Robert had to relearn the way he thought about aging. Instead of seeing it as a slow decline, I wanted him to see it as a stage of life where careful choices could make an enormous difference. We talked about the importance of protein for muscle repair, the role of healthy fats in reducing inflammation, and the surprising ways certain vitamins and minerals influence muscle contraction and recovery. And I reminded him often that he wasn't starting from zero. His body had decades of resilience to draw on. He just needed to give it the tools to keep going. In those early weeks, Robert began to notice subtle changes. His morning walks felt a little easier. His posture improved. He found himself standing up from his chair without pushing off the armrests. The first time he carried a full basket of laundry up the stairs without stopping halfway, he called me, his voice buzzing with quiet pride. "I'm not there yet," he said, "but I'm on my way." Those small victories became fuel for the next step, and the next, until Robert began to feel that steady hum of confidence returning. The most powerful part of Robert's transformation was watching his energy spill over into the rest of his life. He started volunteering again at the local library, he spent longer afternoons in the garden, he even surprised Ellen with a weekend trip to the coast, something they hadn't done in years because he'd been too tired. Each of these moments was a reminder that strength isn't just about muscles, it's about reclaiming the life you want to live. That's why I decided to share Robert's story with you today. His journey is proof that it's never too late to turn things around. Whether you're just beginning to notice the signs of muscle loss or you've been struggling with it for years, there are steps you can take, simple, natural steps that can help you feel stronger, more capable, and more like yourself again. Over the course of this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact foods and habits that helped Robert regain his strength. These aren't abstract theories or complicated programs, they're practical changes you can start today, no matter your current fitness level. By the end, I want you to feel what Robert felt, that growing spark of possibility that comes when you realize your best years aren't behind you. You still have time to build a body that supports the life you love, and it starts, quite simply, with what's on your plate. So let's step into Robert's story together, one bite at a time, and see how the right foods can help you stay strong, steady, and ready for the days ahead. I remember sitting across from Robert in my office a week after his diagnosis. The word sarcopenia still hung in the air between us, like an uninvited guest neither of us wanted in the room. He was quiet at first, turning his coffee mug slowly in his hands, as though he could stir the worry away. Finally, he looked up and said, "So this is just what happens? You get old and your body gives out?" There was no anger in his voice, just a kind of weary acceptance, as if someone had told him the sun wouldn't rise tomorrow and he was trying to believe it. I leaned forward and told him something I've learned over decades of working with people his age. Getting older doesn't have to mean getting weaker. Yes, time changes us. Yes, the body shifts in ways we can't always control. But weakness isn't an inevitable fate, it's a challenge we can answer. I explained that there are countless people over 60 who live vibrant, strong, independent lives because they made small but powerful choices every day. The real difference wasn't in their age, it was in how they cared for themselves. Robert raised an eyebrow, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "So you're saying I can turn this around?" he asked. I smiled and nodded. "You can't turn back the clock, Robert, but you can teach your body to work with it instead of against it." I told him about patients who'd gone from struggling to carry groceries to hiking trails again, about grandparents who could lift their grandkids without wincing, about couples who rediscovered dancing in their living rooms after years of avoiding it. For Robert, the shift began with a single decision. He would no longer see his body as an enemy. He promised himself and Ellen that he'd treat his strength like a garden that needed tending. Some days might require more effort, some days less, but every day would be a chance to plant something good. That small shift in thinking changed everything. He no longer woke up dreading what he couldn't do. Instead, he looked for what he could. Over the next few days, Robert started paying attention to the little things. He noticed how much easier it was to get up from his chair when he stood without rushing. He realized that carrying smaller loads of laundry upstairs was less taxing than lugging the whole basket at once. And he saw that walking to the mailbox every afternoon wasn't just a chore. It was a chance to stretch his legs and feel the air on his face. These weren't grand achievements, but they were steps forward, and that mattered. Ellen noticed too. One evening, she mentioned how his mood seemed lighter, how he laughed more freely again. "You're coming back to me," she said softly, squeezing his hand across the dinner table. Robert smiled but didn't say much. He didn't need to. The truth was, he was starting to believe her. And as he settled into bed that night, he found himself thinking, maybe I'm not done yet. Maybe I'm just getting started. Robert had always thought of aging as something you could see in the mirror, a few more wrinkles, grayer hair, maybe a slower walk. What he didn't realize, at least not until recently, was that there are changes that creep in quietly, changes you can't see until one day they're suddenly obvious. The first time he noticed his legs trembling after climbing the 2 short flights of stairs to his study, he brushed it off. Just a long day, he told himself. When his grip felt weaker on the steering wheel during a long drive, he figured he was just tired. And when his arms ached after raking leaves for less than an hour, he told himself it was nothing a good night's sleep wouldn't fix. But those moments began to add up. They weren't loud, dramatic failures, no collapsed runs in the park, no dropped grocery bags shattering on the kitchen floor. Instead, it was a slow, quiet unraveling. Each week, something seemed just a little harder than it had been before. And because the changes were so gradual, Robert didn't even notice how much he was adapting his life around them. He avoided carrying heavy boxes from the garage. He started using the elevator instead of the stairs at the library. He let Ellen do more of the lifting at the grocery store without thinking twice. When we finally sat down to talk about it, I told him that what he was experiencing was something I call the silent muscle thief. Sarcopenia doesn't arrive with a loud knock at the door. It slips in quietly, stealing strength in small, almost unnoticeable amounts. And because it happens so gradually, most people don't realize what's been taken until they need it. When they try to catch themselves from a stumble, or lift a grandchild, or open a stubborn jar. By then, the thief has been at work for years. Robert leaned back in his chair, processing what I'd said. "So you're telling me this didn't just start in the last few months?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, Robert, this is something that's been happening in the background for a while. The good news is, now you've caught it. And when you know a thief is in your house, you can stop him." I could see his jaw tighten slightly, the way it used to when he dealt with difficult parents at the school. He didn't like being taken advantage of, not by people, and certainly not by his own body. We talked about the science for a moment, but I kept it simple. As we age, our bodies naturally lose muscle mass if we don't give them a reason to keep it. That reason comes in the form of activity, and, just as importantly, the right kind of fuel. Muscles don't just need movement, they need building blocks. Without enough protein, healthy fats, and certain key vitamins, the body simply doesn't have what it needs to repair and maintain muscle tissue. It's like trying to fix a house without any wood or nails. You can have the best tools in the world, but without the materials, nothing gets built. Robert nodded slowly, but I could tell his mind was elsewhere. "You know," he said after a pause, "I used to pride myself on being the one people could count on to lift the heavy stuff. In my family, I was the guy who moved the couch, carried the luggage, got the boxes down from the attic. I didn't realize how much I identified with that until I couldn't do it anymore." There was a flicker of sadness in his eyes, the kind that comes when you realize you've been letting go of parts of yourself without even noticing. That's when I reminded him that identity isn't just about what you used to do, it's about what you choose to do now. "Robert," I said gently, "the thief might have taken some things from you, but he hasn't taken everything. You still have strength, and you can build on it, but you have to start treating your body like something worth protecting." We made a pact that day. For the next month, Robert would pay close attention to the little moments where weakness tried to sneak in. If carrying the laundry basket felt harder than it should, he'd notice. If standing from the sofa took effort, he'd notice. And he wouldn't just notice, he'd act. That might mean resting, adjusting, or finding a way to add strength-building habits back into his day. He understood now that ignoring the problem was exactly how the thief operated. Silence and inattention were its greatest weapons. That evening, Robert went home and shared what we'd talked about with Ellen. She listened quietly, nodding as he spoke. When he finished, she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "I've seen it happening, Robert," she admitted. "I didn't know what to say, but I'm glad you're ready to fight for yourself. I want you around for a long time." Her words landed deeply, and for the first time in months, Robert felt a spark of determination burn in his chest. The very next morning, he made a small but significant change. Instead of pouring himself a bowl of sugary cereal like he often did, he scrambled 2 eggs and added a slice of whole grain toast. He didn't think of it as a grand gesture, just a quiet message to himself that he was starting to take back what had been stolen. Later that day, when Ellen asked him to bring up a box from the basement, he took his time but carried it up himself, resting halfway to catch his breath. It was harder than he remembered, but when he set it down in the living room, a grin spread across his face. These moments were small, almost invisible to anyone else, but they mattered. Each one was like changing the locks on his house, making it just a little harder for the silent muscle thief to get in. Over the next week, Robert kept finding more of them, walking to the store instead of driving, carrying his own groceries, even doing light stretches in the living room while watching the evening news. It wasn't about perfection, it was about awareness and action. By the time we met again a week later, Robert's posture had changed. He still moved cautiously, but there was a firmness in his step, a quiet readiness in the way he held himself. "I've been catching the thief," he said with a small smile, and I knew then that he'd taken the first real step in his journey back to strength. The silent muscle thief had been exposed, and Robert wasn't going to let him slip away unnoticed again. A few days after our last visit, Robert shared something new with me, an old habit resurfacing in an unexpected way. He told me about a recipe his late grandmother used to make, something called quinoa. It was a word he'd heard before but never really understood. Curious, he'd picked up a small bag at the grocery store and decided to try it, thinking, why not? It's just food. What he didn't expect was how quickly that simple seed became a cornerstone of his daily meals. Quinoa, as I explained to Robert, is far more than just a grain. It's a complete protein, which means it contains all 9 essential amino acids that the body needs to repair and build muscle. That's rare in the plant world. For someone like Robert, who was trying to rebuild strength after years of unnoticed muscle loss, quinoa was like a little miracle packed in every bite. More than that, it was a natural way to send his body a clear message. It was time to start rebuilding. Robert's first meal with quinoa was humble, a warm bowl mixed with sautéed vegetables and a sprinkle of olive oil. He said it was surprisingly light, with a subtle nutty flavor that reminded him of roasted nuts. More importantly, after a week of adding it to breakfast or dinner, he noticed something different. His muscles felt less tired, especially after his morning walks. Climbing the stairs didn't leave him as winded as before. The fatigue that used to settle into his legs in the afternoon was starting to ease. As he described these changes, I could tell that Robert wasn't just eating better, he was reconnecting with his body. He began to appreciate the way food can be medicine, especially for aging muscles. Quinoa wasn't just a new ingredient, it was a symbol of his commitment to change. Of course, it wasn't a magic fix overnight. Robert still had days when the weight of years felt heavy on his limbs. But with each meal that included quinoa, he was building a foundation, one strong enough to support his daily activities and future goals. He told me about experimenting with recipes, sometimes using quinoa in salads, other times turning it into a porridge with a touch of honey and fresh fruit. The versatility made it easy to stick with. One afternoon, Robert's granddaughter Emma came over for a visit. She was 7, full of energy, and always ready to test Grandpa's strength with impromptu games. This time, instead of feeling exhausted halfway through, Robert found himself holding his own. When Emma challenged him to a playful arm wrestle, he laughed and gave it his best shot, something he hadn't felt confident doing in years. Seeing the smile on her face was one of the best rewards he'd had yet. At our next appointment, I reminded Robert that food alone isn't enough to rebuild muscle. It's part of a bigger picture that includes movement and rest. But nutrition lays the groundwork. Without those essential amino acids and nutrients, muscles can't recover or grow. Quinoa was helping to provide the raw materials for repair, but his body also needed stimulation. That's why we planned simple strength-building exercises he could do safely at home, starting with light resistance movements and gentle stretching. Robert was motivated. He took pride in tracking his progress, both in meals and activity. He told me that cooking with quinoa made him feel like he was doing something proactive, something tangible. It was no longer a passive victim to aging, but an active participant in his health. His wife Ellen noticed too. She started joining him in preparing quinoa dishes and even began taking short walks with him in the evenings. Their shared commitment added a new layer of joy to their days. The kitchen became a place of experimentation and bonding rather than routine chore. For Robert, this shift wasn't just about muscle health, it was about reclaiming vitality and connection. That same week, Robert mentioned a small but significant moment that stood out to him. While cleaning the garage, he lifted a heavy box without hesitation. Usually this would have left him stiff and sore for days, but this time his muscles felt strong and resilient. It was a quiet victory, but to Robert, it meant everything. I encouraged him to celebrate these moments no matter how small. Each one was proof that his body was responding, that the silent muscle thief was being pushed back. He was no longer losing ground, he was gaining it. As our session ended, Robert smiled and said, "I never thought something as simple as a seed could make such a difference. It's amazing how the little things add up." I agreed. Sometimes it's the simplest choices that become the most powerful. Not long after discovering the benefits of quinoa, Robert shared another small but meaningful discovery with me: Greek yogurt. It came up during a visit from his daughter, Lisa, who was concerned about his recovery and overall nutrition. Lisa, a nutritionist by profession, had urged him to incorporate more protein-rich foods into his diet. She'd mentioned Greek yogurt as a powerhouse for muscle repair, But Robert was hesitant at first. Yogurt had always seemed like a light snack or a dessert, not something that could truly help rebuild strength. One afternoon, Lisa brought over a container of thick, creamy Greek yogurt topped with fresh berries and a drizzle of honey. She encouraged Robert to try it as a midday snack. He took a cautious spoonful and was surprised by its richness and smooth texture. It wasn't just a treat, it felt like nourishment. He told me that over the next few days, he began enjoying it regularly, mixing in nuts or chia seeds for extra flavor and texture. Greek yogurt turned out to be more than just a tasty addition. It became a vital part of Robert's muscle-building arsenal. I explained to him that this creamy delight offers nearly double the protein of regular yogurt, which is essential for muscle repair, especially after light activity or exercise. Robert started to notice how his recovery after his daily walks felt quicker, his muscles less sore. The protein was fueling those tiny tears and muscle fibers that happen even during gentle movement, helping his body rebuild stronger than before. Beyond protein, Greek yogurt brought other benefits. Robert learned it was rich in calcium, a mineral, crucial not only for bones, but also for muscle contractions. Without enough calcium, muscles can cramp or feel weak, something Robert had experienced in his calves during long walks. The probiotics found in Greek yogurt also helped improve his digestion. Better digestion meant his body could absorb nutrients more efficiently, making all the healthy food choices he was making work harder. Ellen noticed the difference too. She began preparing small bowls of Greek yogurt with fruit or nuts for both of them, turning it into a shared ritual. These simple moments in the kitchen grew into a new source of connection and comfort. Robert started feeling more energetic throughout the day and less dependent on his afternoon nap. "It's amazing how something so simple can make such a difference," he said with a smile during one of our check-ins. There was one afternoon, a week after he started regularly eating Greek yogurt, when Robert surprised even himself. After helping Ellen carry groceries into the house, he found he wasn't as tired as he expected. Later, during a family dinner, he lifted his glass to toast with a confidence that hadn't been there for years. That small boost in stamina and strength was a direct result of the steady protein intake he'd been nourishing his body with. Of course, Robert didn't see these changes as a quick fix. He understood that rebuilding muscle and restoring vitality was a gradual process, one that required patience and persistence. But the creamy texture and mild flavor of Greek yogurt made it an easy habit to maintain. It wasn't a chore or a burden, it was a small pleasure, a way to care for himself without feeling deprived. I reminded Robert that nutrition is just one part of the puzzle, but adding such nutrient-dense foods to his diet was like giving his body the right tools for the job. Each spoonful of Greek yogurt was a step toward healing, a gentle way to say, "I'm taking care of you." The transformation was as much emotional as it was physical. Robert told me that eating better and seeing results lifted a weight off his shoulders. He began to look forward to his meals rather than dread the fatigue and frustration of weakness. That renewed hope fueled other positive choices, like sticking with his daily walks and gradually increasing his activity. Ellen shared with me how she saw a different man at home, one who was more engaged, more present. "It's like he's coming back to himself," she said softly. Their evenings together were livelier, filled with conversation about new recipes, health tips, and future plans. The shared journey towards strength became something they both embraced. Robert's story with Greek yogurt wasn't about dramatic overnight changes, but about the quiet, steady building of strength through mindful choices. It was about learning that healing and growth could be found in simple, everyday moments, in a spoonful of creamy yogurt, in a shared meal, in the decision to keep moving forward. By the time we met again, Robert was visibly more confident. His movements were smoother, his posture steadier. The path ahead was still long, but he walked it with a new sense of purpose. Greek yogurt had become more than just food. It was a symbol of his commitment to reclaiming his strength, one creamy bite at a time. A few weeks into his new routine, Robert's daughter Lisa called me with a suggestion. "Dad's been doing great with the quinoa and Greek yogurt, but I think he'd really benefit from adding some salmon to his meals," she said. I agreed wholeheartedly. Salmon isn't just delicious, it's one of the richest natural sources of omega-3 fatty acids, essential fats that the body can't produce on its own, but desperately needs, especially as we age. When I explained the benefits to Robert, he was intrigued but a bit skeptical. "Fish, huh? I've never been much of a seafood person," he admitted with a chuckle. but he was committed to trying. Ellen helped out by preparing simple salmon dishes, baked with lemon and herbs, grilled with a light glaze, and even flaked into fresh salads. The flavors quickly won Robert over, and the meals became a highlight rather than a chore. The magic of omega-3s lies in their powerful anti-inflammatory properties. As we age, inflammation tends to creep into our muscles and joints, causing soreness, stiffness, and slower recovery. Robert had been feeling that soreness after even gentle activity, and the idea that salmon could ease that pain was hopeful. Over the next few weeks, he noticed that his post-walk stiffness began to fade. Climbing stairs felt less taxing, and his muscles didn't ache as deeply after a day in the garden. One afternoon, Robert told me about a moment that stuck with him. After a morning spent pruning roses, he usually felt exhausted, his shoulders tight and sore. But that day, the discomfort was milder, almost manageable. He realized that the combination of omega-3 rich salmon and his steady protein intake was helping his muscles recover faster. It was as if his body was learning to fight back against the years of wear and tear. But the benefits of salmon went beyond just reducing soreness. Robert learned it was also a complete protein source, packed with all the essential amino acids needed for muscle repair and growth. Each serving gave him the building blocks to rebuild the muscle fibers that sarcopenia had been quietly breaking down. Plus, salmon provided vitamin B12, which supported nerve function and energy metabolism, two key players in maintaining strength and coordination. I reminded Robert that while he was doing the work of rebuilding, his body also needed support to maintain bone health. That's where salmon's vitamin D content played a crucial role. Vitamin D helps regulate calcium absorption, which in turn is vital for muscle contractions and bone density. This nutrient was another weapon in Robert's growing arsenal against weakness and frailty. Ellen noticed the change too. She said Robert seemed more lively and engaged during their weekend outings. He's walking further, moving more easily, and even has the energy to help me with chores, she told me with a smile. Their partnership in this journey was growing stronger, fueled by these small but powerful victories. Of course, not every day was easy. Robert still faced challenges, occasional fatigue, moments of doubt, and the natural ups and downs of recovery. But the taste of progress, no matter how small, kept him motivated. Eating salmon wasn't just about nutrition, it was about reclaiming a life he feared was slipping away. One evening, Robert shared with me a quiet victory. After dinner, he lifted his grandchild onto his shoulders, something he hadn't done in years without wincing. The weight felt heavy but manageable, and the laughter they shared echoed through the house. "It's these moments that remind me why I'm fighting so hard," he said softly. That fight was now supported by science and nature, working hand in hand. Salmon's omega-3s reduced the inflammation that made movement painful, while its protein content helped rebuild strength. Vitamin B12 and D provided energy and support to keep the muscles and bones working together. Each serving was a step towards a stronger, more resilient Robert. In our next session, I encouraged him to keep exploring different ways to enjoy salmon and other fatty fish. Variety not only keeps meals interesting, but also ensures a broader range of nutrients. Robert was already thinking about trying grilled mackerel and sardines, excited by the idea of expanding his palate and his strength. The journey was far from over, but with salmon now on his plate regularly, Robert was feeling more confident than ever. He was learning that healing and strength weren't about one miracle food, but a combination of choices that nourished his body and spirit every day. After several weeks of steady progress, Robert was eager to learn about the next step in his journey. One morning during our session, I brought up eggs. Simple, affordable, and incredibly powerful for muscle health. He looked surprised. "Eggs? I've always thought of them as breakfast food, nothing more," he said. But as I explained, eggs are often called nature's perfect protein for good reason. They contain all 9 essential amino acids in just the right amounts, giving the body everything it needs to rebuild muscle fibers effectively. Robert's eyes lit up as he listened. This was exactly the kind of practical, no-nonsense food he could get behind. Plus, eggs were already familiar to him, making them easy to add regularly. I encouraged him to think beyond scrambled eggs and explore different ways to include them, boiled, poached, in omelets with vegetables, or even as a snack on their own. He began incorporating eggs into his meals right away. Ellen, always supportive, enjoyed experimenting with recipes too, adding spinach, tomatoes, and herbs for variety. These meals soon became a staple in their household, both delicious and purposeful. One of the remarkable things about eggs is their nutrient density beyond protein. Robert learned they're a natural source of vitamin D, supporting strong bones and healthy muscle contraction. This was particularly important since he'd already seen the role vitamin D played from his salmon servings. Together, these nutrients were building a solid foundation for his musculoskeletal health. Eggs also contain vitamin B12 and choline, essential for energy production and nerve signaling. Robert noticed that as he included more eggs in his diet, his coordination improved subtly. Tasks that required dexterity, like buttoning his shirt or handling his gardening tools, felt smoother. It was a quiet improvement, but one that gave him confidence. One evening, after a hearty egg and vegetable omelet, Robert mentioned how he was able to get through a long afternoon of yard work without the muscle fatigue that used to plague him. The combination of protein and vitamins in eggs was giving his muscles the fuel and support they needed to keep going. At home, Ellen observed that Robert seemed more energized overall. Their weekends became more active, filled with walks and gardening projects that once seemed daunting. She told me she felt like they were rediscovering their partnership in this new chapter of life, both growing stronger together. Robert's friends started noticing changes too. During a weekly card game, one of his buddies complimented him on his posture and how much livelier he seemed. Robert shrugged but felt a quiet pride swell inside. He was proof that age didn't have to be a barrier to vitality. Of course, not every day was perfect. Robert still had moments of frustration when muscle aches crept in or when he caught himself favoring one side over the other. But the routine of including eggs in his diet reminded him that progress isn't linear. It's made in the small, consistent steps taken day after day. One morning, he shared with me a story that warmed my heart. He had volunteered to help carry supplies at the local community center. It was hard work, lifting boxes and setting up chairs, but he finished the day without the exhaustion he would have felt months earlier. "It felt good to contribute again," he said, eyes shining, "like I was part of something bigger." That feeling of belonging and usefulness was as important as any muscle gain. Eggs had become more than just food for Robert. They were a symbol of resilience, of taking control. He often thought back to that moment when opening a jar felt impossible and marveled at how far he'd come. The journey was still ongoing, but each meal with eggs was a building block toward a stronger, more independent self. In our next session, I plan to introduce Robert to leafy greens, the silent champions of muscle and bone health. But for now, we celebrated the wins he'd made with something as simple as nature's perfect protein. As Robert's journey unfolded, it became clear that nutrition was unlocking doors he thought were closed. After embracing the power of eggs, we turned our attention to another everyday hero, spinach. Though humble and often overlooked, spinach is a powerhouse of nutrients that support muscle function, bone strength, and overall vitality. Exactly what Robert needed to continue rebuilding his strength. When I introduced spinach to Robert, he smiled and said, "I remember eating it as a kid, mostly because my mom made me." But as we talked about what made this leafy green so special, his interest deepened. Spinach is packed with magnesium, a mineral essential for muscle contraction and nerve signaling. Robert had mentioned occasional cramps and fatigue during his walks, and magnesium deficiency could be a hidden culprit. I explained how spinach's rich vitamin K content supports bone health by helping the body use calcium effectively. A critical factor for seniors like Robert who wanted to maintain not just muscles, but strong, resilient bones. Plus, spinach contains vitamin A for tissue repair and vitamin C for collagen production and immune defense, all vital for recovery and staying active. Robert began adding spinach to his meals in creative ways, tossed in salads, blended into smoothies, mixed into omelets, or lightly sautéed as a side dish. Ellen quickly became a fan, appreciating how easy it was to incorporate into their cooking without fuss. The couple started experimenting with new recipes, transforming their kitchen into a place of discovery and nourishment. After a few weeks, Robert told me about an unexpected change. One morning, as he got out of bed, the usual stiffness in his knees and back was noticeably less intense. His muscles felt more relaxed, and for the first time in a while, he moved without wincing. He credited the spinach-rich meals for helping ease inflammation and provide his muscles the magnesium they desperately needed. The benefits extended beyond physical sensation. Robert found his endurance improving. On his daily walks, he could go farther without needing frequent rests. His posture was straighter, his steps steadier. These small wins added up, and with each, his confidence grew. One afternoon during a family picnic, Robert lifted his granddaughter onto his shoulders with ease, a moment of joy and strength he hadn't expected to experience again. Ellen caught the smile on his face and said, "You're getting your old self back." That affirmation meant the world to him. I reminded Robert that spinach's high antioxidant content plays a vital role in protecting muscles from oxidative stress, the kind of wear and tear that happens during physical activity. Antioxidants like lutein and zeaxanthin help reduce inflammation, allowing muscles to recover faster and stay in peak condition. This was especially important as he increased his activity levels. Incorporating spinach also improved Robert's digestion thanks to its fiber content. Better digestion meant his body could absorb more nutrients from all the healthy foods he was eating, making the entire nutrition plan more effective. Though he sometimes found the taste slightly bitter, Robert learned to pair spinach with sweeter ingredients like berries or citrus in smoothies, making it more enjoyable. He also enjoyed the feeling of doing something good for his body that was simple and accessible. Ellen mentioned that their local farmers market had fresh spinach every weekend, so they started making it a routine to shop together. These outings became a way for them to connect with their community, enjoy fresh air, and plan healthy meals, a full circle moment of health and happiness. Robert's progress was becoming more evident to everyone around him. Friends commented on his improved energy, family noticed his lighter step, and even his doctor remarked on his better muscle tone and mobility. But Robert remained humble. He knew the journey wasn't over and that staying consistent was key. Each meal with spinach was another promise kept to himself, a promise to keep growing stronger. As we wrapped up that session, I encouraged Robert to keep exploring ways to make spinach a staple, reminding him that strength often comes from the quiet, consistent choices made daily. He smiled, feeling empowered by the knowledge that something as simple as a leafy green could fuel his comeback. As Robert's journey toward renewed strength progressed, one of the simple yet powerful changes he embraced was adding almonds to his daily routine. It started during a casual conversation with Ellen about snacks. She wanted to find something healthy and satisfying that could keep him energized between meals without the crash of sugary treats. Almonds, I suggested, were a perfect choice. Small, crunchy, and packed with nutrients, they were an easy way to nourish his muscles and protect his cells from damage. At first, Robert wasn't sure about almonds. "A handful of nuts every day seems too simple," he joked. But after trying them roasted and unsalted, sometimes mixed into yogurt or sprinkled on salads, he began to appreciate their rich, satisfying flavor. More importantly, he started noticing the subtle ways they helped him feel stronger and more alert throughout the day. Almonds are a nutritional powerhouse, especially for people like Robert who were focused on muscle recovery and inflammation reduction. Each handful provides plant-based protein to help repair muscle fibers torn during daily activities, along with healthy fats that regulate inflammation. Inflammation, if left unchecked, can slow recovery and worsen soreness, something Robert had dealt with in his legs and back. One of the key nutrients in almonds is vitamin E, a potent antioxidant that protects muscle cells from oxidative stress caused by free radicals. This protection is essential for seniors who are more vulnerable to cellular damage from both aging and physical exertion. Robert's muscles were now receiving a shield that helped preserve their strength and resilience. Another vital component of almonds is magnesium, which supports muscle contraction and relaxation. Robert had experienced muscle cramps in the past, especially after walks or gardening. After including almonds regularly, those cramps became less frequent and less intense. He even mentioned feeling less fatigued during his morning walks. Adding almonds also helped Robert manage his appetite. Their combination of protein, fiber, and healthy fats kept him feeling full longer, which was useful for avoiding the energy dips that led to unhealthy snacking. Ellen said she noticed Robert was more mindful about his food choices and seemed less tempted by processed snacks. One afternoon, Robert shared with me a story that highlighted how much these small changes were improving his quality of life. He was visiting friends for a barbecue and found himself joining in the games rather than sitting on the sidelines. His endurance surprised him, and he even helped set up chairs without needing a break. These moments of participation, fueled by consistent nutrition, were turning into lasting memories. Ellen and Robert started making almond-based snacks a shared ritual, blending them into smoothies or creating homemade almond butter spreads. The kitchen became a place of creativity and care, where nourishing their bodies went hand in hand with nurturing their relationship. Of course, Robert understood that almonds weren't a cure-all, but part of a bigger strategy. Still, he found comfort in their simplicity and effectiveness. The crunchy snack was a daily reminder that strength could be cultivated one bite at a time. At our next meeting, I encouraged Robert to keep exploring natural, nutrient-dense foods like almonds that support muscle health and overall wellness. He was eager to continue, knowing that every thoughtful choice brought him closer to reclaiming his vitality. As Robert settled into his evolving routine, one food quickly became his new favorite and most reliable ally: chicken breast. Simple, lean, and packed with high-quality protein, it fit perfectly into his mission to rebuild strength and endurance after years of muscle loss. What surprised Robert most was how versatile and satisfying it was, allowing him to enjoy meals that supported recovery without feeling heavy or complicated. During one of our sessions, I explained to Robert that chicken breast is considered one of the gold standards for muscle nutrition. Each serving delivers a hefty dose of complete protein, providing all the essential amino acids needed to repair and rebuild muscle fibers, especially overnight when the body does much of its healing. The lean nature of chicken breast meant he could nourish his muscles without unnecessary fat or calories, supporting a healthier body composition as he aged. Robert took this advice to heart. He began incorporating chicken breast into his meals several times a week. Ellen, ever the culinary partner, found countless ways to prepare it: grilled with herbs, baked with vegetables, shredded into salads, and even in stir-fries with colorful peppers and broccoli. This variety kept mealtimes exciting and enjoyable, which made sticking to his nutrition plan easier. One evening after dinner, Robert shared a breakthrough moment with me. He woke up feeling stronger than usual. The morning stiffness was less noticeable, and his legs felt more capable as he prepared for his daily walk. He realized that the steady intake of lean protein was fueling his muscles' overnight recovery better than any supplement he had tried before. We also discussed how chicken breast's rich content of B vitamins like niacin, B3, and vitamin B6 played a crucial role in energy metabolism and nerve function. These vitamins helped convert the food he ate into usable energy and supported muscle coordination, allowing Robert to move with greater ease and confidence throughout the day. Robert's improved strength wasn't just physical, it was deeply psychological. Knowing that he was actively nourishing his body with such purposeful foods gave him a renewed sense of control over his health. He no longer saw aging as a slow decline, but as a stage where mindful choices could make a real difference. At home, Ellen noticed that Robert was more willing to take on household tasks he had previously avoided. Whether it was carrying the laundry basket, helping with yard work, or preparing meals, his energy and enthusiasm had increased significantly. Their shared journey had become a source of joy and connection. One weekend, Robert joined his grandson at the park for a game of catch. For the first time in years, he didn't feel winded or unsteady. His throws were stronger, his catches quicker. The laughter and high fives from his grandson filled him with a profound sense of accomplishment. I reminded Robert that while chicken breast was a nutritional powerhouse, consistency was key. Eating well and staying active every day, even when motivation waned, would sustain his progress. Together, we mapped out a plan to maintain this balance, integrating protein-rich meals with gentle strength exercises. Robert was eager to keep moving forward. The chicken breast had become more than just a food, it was a symbol of his resilience and determination to reclaim a life full of strength, independence, and moments worth savoring. As Robert's journey continued, he began to realize that rebuilding strength wasn't only about muscles, it was equally about supporting his bones. After all, muscles and bones work hand in hand to keep us upright, moving, and steady. It wasn't just the protein-rich foods fueling his muscles. Many of the foods he was now enjoying were also nourishing his bones, providing the minerals and vitamins needed to keep them dense and resilient. One day, during a visit, I explained to Robert that osteoporosis and bone thinning are common concerns for people over 60. Weak bones increase the risk of fractures and falls, which can drastically change a person's independence. Fortunately, many of the nutrient-dense foods he had already embraced, like spinach, Greek yogurt, salmon, and chicken breast, also supply calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, and other bone-supporting compounds. Robert listened carefully as I described how calcium is the building block for bones, giving them strength and structure. Vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium more effectively, making sure it gets to the places that need it most. Magnesium, found in spinach and almonds, supports bone formation and regulates calcium levels. Together, these nutrients create a protective shield for bone health. At home, Robert began to think differently about his meals. It wasn't just about muscles anymore. He was building a stronger skeleton underneath. He added an extra serving of Greek yogurt or a handful of almonds to his daily intake, knowing they were helping in more ways than one. These small tweaks gave him a sense of empowerment. Every bite was a step toward better balance and fewer worries about falls. Ellen noticed his growing awareness and shared that she was making similar changes for herself. Their evening conversations often included planning meals rich in these bone-supporting nutrients. The shared commitment to health was deepening their bond and bringing new joy to their daily routines. One afternoon, Robert recounted a moment that made the importance of strong bones real to him. While reaching up to dust a high shelf, he felt a familiar twinge in his wrist. Instead of ignoring it, he paused, reflecting on how far he'd come in understanding his body's needs. He made a mental note to include more calcium-rich foods and to discuss safe strengthening exercises with me. We talked about the importance of weight-bearing activities like walking, light resistance training, and balance exercises. These activities help stimulate bone growth and maintain density. Robert was motivated to incorporate gentle strength routines into his days, complementing his improved nutrition. His renewed commitment to bone health brought subtle but meaningful changes. He felt steadier on his feet, his balance improving with each passing week. During a family gathering, he even surprised himself by standing comfortably on one foot to tie his shoe, a small victory that filled him with pride. The support from his family played a crucial role in this phase. Ellen encouraged him to stay consistent, while his children admired his dedication and often joined him for walks or meal prep. Robert realized that his journey wasn't just personal, it was inspiring those around him to make healthier choices too. At our next check-in, I reminded Robert that bones, like muscles, need time and consistent care to strengthen. There are no quick fixes, but the combination of nutrient-rich foods and regular activity builds a foundation that can last a lifetime. Robert nodded thoughtfully, sharing his gratitude for the knowledge and support he had received. I never thought about bones this way before, he admitted. Now, it feels like every choice I make is building a better future. As we wrapped up, Robert shared his hope that others his age would see that it's never too late to start caring for their muscles and bones. His own story was proof that with the right foods, mindset, and habits, stronger days are possible. As Robert's journey toward renewed strength and vitality unfolded, he began to notice something else shifting, his energy. Where once he had felt drained by midday, now he found himself moving through the day with a steadier, more reliable flow of vigor. This was no accident. The changes in his diet and habits were fueling him in ways he hadn't experienced in years. One morning, after his usual breakfast of quinoa porridge topped with nuts and fresh berries, Robert told me, "I'm not crashing in the afternoons like I used to. I actually feel alert and ready to tackle my to-do list." That was a milestone. For years, fatigue had been an unwelcome companion, limiting his activities and dampening his enthusiasm. Now, thanks to the combination of nutrient-rich foods and better eating habits, his energy was more balanced and sustained. I explained to Robert that steady energy comes from more than just calories. It's about how your body processes those calories and what kinds of nutrients you provide. Foods rich in protein, healthy fats, and fiber slow down digestion, releasing glucose gradually into the bloodstream. This avoids the spikes and crashes that come from sugary or processed foods. The meals he'd been enjoying, like quinoa with nuts and salmon with leafy greens, provided that slow, steady fuel his body craved. Robert also appreciated how smaller, more frequent meals kept his metabolism humming. Instead of 3 large plates that left him feeling sluggish, he'd shifted to eating moderate portions more often throughout the day. This helped maintain his blood sugar levels and kept hunger at bay, reducing the temptation to snack on less nutritious options. His improved digestion, thanks in part to the probiotics from Greek yogurt and fiber from vegetables and nuts, also played a role. When the gut works efficiently, the body extracts more nutrients from food, supporting sustained energy. Robert found that his mornings began with a lighter, more comfortable feeling, no longer weighed down by bloating or discomfort. One afternoon, Robert shared a story that underscored this newfound vitality. While volunteering at the local library, he was able to manage several hours of organizing books and assisting visitors without needing breaks to rest. This was a stark contrast to just a few months prior when fatigue would have cut his shift short. He felt useful, engaged, and proud. Ellen noticed the change too. She said Robert was more upbeat and present, no longer retreating early to rest after meals. Their walks together became longer and more enjoyable, and he was even able to take on small household projects with enthusiasm. This steady energy was not just physical, it was rejuvenating his spirit. I reminded Robert that managing energy is also about mindset and pacing. He was learning to listen to his body's signals, balancing activity with rest and avoiding the trap of pushing too hard too fast. This respect for his limits was allowing his body to rebuild without burnout. The combination of steady nutrition, regular movement, and mindful rest was becoming Robert's new rhythm. It wasn't just about fighting muscle loss anymore, it was about reclaiming a life filled with purpose and joy. One evening, as we concluded our session, Robert said, "I feel like I found a secret I wish I'd known years ago." That secret was simple. Consistent, balanced choices lead to lasting energy and strength. His journey was proof that age doesn't have to mean exhaustion, it can mean empowerment. By the time Robert reached this stage in his journey, he had come to realize that transforming his health didn't require grand, sweeping changes. Instead, it was the small swaps, the little adjustments in what he ate and how he moved, that were quietly but powerfully reversing years of muscle loss. This was a relief to him. The idea of starting over completely had felt overwhelming, but these small, manageable changes gave him confidence and hope. One morning, Robert shared with me a few examples of the swaps he'd made recently. Instead of reaching for white bread at breakfast, he was now choosing whole grain or quinoa-based options, which kept his blood sugar steadier and provided better nutrition. He swapped sugary snacks for handfuls of almonds or Greek yogurt with fruit, which gave him more lasting energy. For dinner, he replaced heavy, processed meats with lean chicken breast or grilled salmon, nourishing his muscles with high-quality protein. Each swap felt like a small victory, and when combined, they were reshaping his health in ways he hadn't imagined possible. Robert said, "It's funny how changing a few things can make such a difference. I don't feel deprived or like I'm on a diet, I just feel healthier." I reminded Robert that these swaps were more than just better choices. They were signals to his body to rebuild and repair. The right nutrients gave his muscles and bones the resources they needed to regain strength. Meanwhile, cutting back on processed and inflammatory foods reduced the stress on his body, allowing recovery to happen more smoothly. These small changes also improved his mood and motivation. Where once he might have felt overwhelmed by the idea of getting healthy, Robert now approached each day with a sense of control and accomplishment. He looked forward to meals rather than dreading them, and he found joy in discovering new recipes and flavors. Ellen noticed that Robert's grocery list had changed too. It was filled with fresh vegetables, lean proteins, nuts, and whole grains. Their shopping trips became opportunities for learning and planning rather than chores. Together, they experimented with dishes that supported Robert's health goals without sacrificing taste or convenience. Beyond nutrition, Robert started making small lifestyle swaps that complemented his dietary changes. He replaced some of his usual TV time with short walks around the neighborhood, sometimes inviting Ellen along. He began incorporating simple strength exercises he learned during our sessions, things as basic as standing from a chair without using his hands, or gentle resistance band stretches. These movements, paired with better nutrition, helped him rebuild muscle tone and balance. One afternoon, Robert told me about a moment that made all these small swaps feel worthwhile. While helping a neighbor carry groceries into their house, he didn't hesitate or feel fatigued. He was strong enough to do it without assistance, a simple act but a huge boost to his confidence. It reminded me that these little changes are building something big, he said. Robert's story was a powerful reminder that transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's the small, consistent choices made daily, those swaps of one food for another, one habit for a healthier one, that add up over weeks and months to create lasting change. He shared how these swaps had also brought his family closer. Ellen, his children, and even grandchildren became part of the journey, learning to eat and live better alongside him. The shared experience deepened their bonds and created a sense of teamwork and support. As we planned the next steps, Robert expressed gratitude for how far he'd come and optimism for what lay ahead. He knew the path wouldn't always be easy, but these small swaps had made it manageable and even enjoyable. With each choice, Robert was not only reversing muscle loss, but reclaiming his independence, vitality, and joy in life. His journey was proof that no matter your age, the right habits can lead to a stronger, healthier you. By now, Robert had come to appreciate that rebuilding strength wasn't just about what he ate, but also about the daily habits that shaped his life. Small, consistent actions had become the pillars supporting his independence, the very foundation that allowed him to live fully and confidently in his later years. One morning, as we sat together, Robert shared how he had started waking up just a little earlier each day, not to rush or stress, but to create space for himself. He began with simple stretching exercises while still in bed, gentle movements that awakened his muscles and joints. It was a quiet ritual, but it set the tone for his entire day. This small habit gave him a sense of control and readiness, a way to greet the day on his own terms. Robert also told me about his commitment to walking daily, not just for exercise, but as a mindful practice. Each step was an opportunity to connect with the world around him, to appreciate the changing seasons, the warmth of the sun, or the crispness of the morning air. These walks became moments of peace and reflection, as well as vital movement that strengthened his legs and improved his balance. Another habit Robert embraced was organizing his living space to minimize risks. He rearranged furniture to create clear pathways, removed loose rugs, and installed better lighting. These changes weren't dramatic, but they significantly reduced his chances of falls, a common concern for seniors. He shared with me how knowing his home was safer gave him confidence to move freely and independently. Nutrition remained a daily focus. Robert made it a habit to plan his meals ahead, ensuring that every plate was balanced and nourishing. This planning reduced the temptation to opt for quick but unhealthy choices. Ellen often joined him in this effort, and together they enjoyed preparing meals that supported Robert's strength and vitality. Hydration was another habit Robert took seriously. He kept a water bottle nearby throughout the day and made sure to drink regularly. He noticed that staying hydrated helped with energy levels, digestion, and even joint comfort. Robert also prioritized sleep, recognizing its critical role in recovery and overall health. He created a bedtime routine that included winding down with calming music and turning off screens an hour before sleep. This routine improved his rest quality, allowing his body to repair and recharge each night. Social connections were equally important. Robert made it a habit to call or visit friends regularly, attend community events, and stay engaged with family. These interactions not only uplifted his spirits, but also encouraged him to stay active and engaged. He often said that feeling connected gave him motivation to keep moving forward. One day, Robert recounted how these daily habits helped him during a challenging moment. He had slipped on a wet patch outside his home, but managed to catch himself quickly. His improved balance, awareness, and safe environment all played a role in preventing a fall. That experience reinforced how these small but steady habits were truly protecting his independence. I reminded Robert that maintaining independence isn't about never needing help. It's about reducing risks and building resilience, so help is needed less often. Each habit he cultivated was a thread weaving a safety net beneath his feet. Robert's story became an inspiration to those around him. Friends and family noticed his vitality and wanted to learn from his example. He shared openly about the habits that kept him strong, encouraging others to take small steps every day toward better health. As we wrapped up our session, Robert expressed gratitude for the journey he was on. The daily habits he once viewed as simple tasks had become his tools for freedom and joy. He looked forward to continuing this path, knowing that every day was a chance to strengthen not just his body, but his life. After months of gradual progress, Robert felt ready to take on a new challenge, a focused 30-day plan designed to build on everything he had learned and push his strength and vitality even further. The idea wasn't to rush or overdo it, but to commit to consistent, daily actions that could accelerate his recovery and deepen his new habits. I introduced Robert to the concept of the 30-day challenge as a way to create momentum. It wasn't about perfection, but persistence. Each day, he would focus on simple, achievable goals, like adding one more serving of muscle-supporting food, spending an extra 5 minutes on strength exercises, or practicing better hydration and sleep habits. Robert was skeptical at first. The word challenge made him think of something strenuous or overwhelming. But when I framed it as a series of small steps, he warmed up to the idea. "I can do something small every day," he said. "That feels doable." The first week was about reinforcement, solidifying the habits he had already started. He tracked his meals carefully, ensuring that every plate included a balance of lean protein, healthy fats, and vegetables rich in vitamins and minerals. Quinoa, Greek yogurt, salmon, eggs, spinach, almonds, and chicken breast were staples in his diet. He also dedicated time each day to gentle strength-building exercises. Standing from a chair without using his hands, wall push-ups, light resistance band stretches. These movements targeted key muscle groups important for daily activities and fall prevention. As days passed, Robert noticed subtle but encouraging changes. His muscles felt more responsive and his endurance improved. He no longer needed frequent breaks during his walks, and standing from seated positions became easier. Ellen became an enthusiastic supporter, often joining him for exercise sessions or helping prepare nutrient-packed meals. Their shared commitment made the challenge feel less like a chore and more like a partnership. Midway through the 30 days, Robert recounted a powerful moment of progress. While reaching to hang a picture on the wall, he realized he had lifted his arm higher and steadier than he had in months. It was a small victory, but one that symbolized how consistent effort was rebuilding strength. Sleep quality improved as well, with Robert reporting feeling more rested and energized upon waking. Better rest accelerated muscle repair, making each day's progress build upon the last. At our weekly check-in, I reminded Robert to listen to his body, rest when needed, celebrate small wins, and stay patient with the process. He was doing exactly what was needed to reclaim his vitality. Toward the end of the challenge, Robert felt a renewed sense of confidence. The effort wasn't always easy, but the results were undeniable. He had reversed many of the limitations that had once held him back and was now looking forward to an active, engaged future. On day 30, Robert celebrated quietly with Ellen, preparing a special meal filled with his favorite muscle-supporting foods. They reflected on how far he had come, from struggling with simple tasks to embracing a life full of possibility. The 30-day challenge had been more than a physical transformation. It was a mental and emotional milestone, a declaration that aging didn't mean giving up, but rather choosing to thrive. Robert's journey was a testament to the power of small, consistent actions. By committing to daily care and nourishment, he had built a foundation that would support his strength for years to come. As Robert reached the final leg of his journey, there was a sense of quiet triumph in his eyes, a calm confidence that came from knowing he had taken control of his health and strength. His path had not been easy, but it had been deeply rewarding. Every small step, every mindful choice had added up to a transformation that went far beyond muscles and bones. It was about reclaiming his life. Sitting together one afternoon, Robert reflected on how much had changed since that day when opening a simple jar felt impossible. He smiled and said, "I never thought I'd feel this strong again, this alive. It's like I've been given a second chance." His words carried the weight of experience and hope, a message for anyone facing the challenges of aging. I reminded Robert that this new strength was not just physical. It was the strength of resilience, determination, and love for life. It was the confidence to wake up each day ready to embrace whatever came next. His journey showed that aging is not a sentence to decline, but an invitation to adapt, grow, and thrive. Robert was excited about the future. He spoke of plans to travel with Ellen, to spend more time with his grandchildren, and to continue volunteering in his community. The activities that once felt out of reach were now sources of joy and connection. He had become an advocate for small, sustainable changes, the kind that fit into real life and honor the body's rhythms. Robert knew that his story could inspire others to believe that it's never too late to start caring for their muscles, bones, and overall well-being. As we talked, Robert shared his gratitude for the support he had received from family, friends, and the knowledge that empowered him to take action. But most of all, he was proud of himself for making the choice every day to keep going, to keep building a stronger future. He reminded me that the journey wasn't just about avoiding loss, but about creating a life full of strength, independence, and happiness. It was about the ability to hold a grandchild, to walk a garden path without fear, to rise from a chair with ease. Robert's story ended not with finality, but with possibility. His strong, confident future was unfolding one day at a time, nourished by the habits, foods, and mindset he had embraced. For anyone watching, Robert's journey offers a powerful lesson. Your future starts now. The choices you make today about what you eat, how you move, and how you care for yourself are the foundation of your strength tomorrow. With warmth and encouragement, I invite you to take that first step. Whether it's adding a handful of almonds to your snack, choosing a leafy green with dinner, or simply standing a little taller each day, every action matters. Strength is not a destination, but a journey. Like Robert, you have the power to write your story, a story of resilience, health, and joy that defies age. So take that step. Nourish your body, move with purpose, and know that a strong, confident future is waiting for you. As we've followed Robert's journey, we've seen how small, consistent choices transformed his life, from struggling with simple tasks to reclaiming his strength and independence. Through embracing nourishing foods like quinoa, Greek yogurt, salmon, eggs, spinach, almonds, and chicken breast, Robert steadily rebuilt his muscles and bones. Alongside gentle daily habits and mindful movement, he found renewed energy, confidence, and joy in everyday moments, whether lifting his granddaughter, walking without fatigue, or simply standing tall again. Robert's story reminds us that aging doesn't have to mean giving up. It's about adapting, learning, and taking deliberate steps to nurture our bodies and spirits. Each bite, each small swap, each daily habit became a building block toward a stronger, healthier future. More than that, his journey was a powerful example of resilience, the courage to face challenges head-on, and the patience to grow stronger over time. If you're watching this and feeling the weight of muscle loss or the fear of losing independence, know this: it's never too late to start. Your body is waiting to respond to the care and attention you give it. The path to strength begins with a single choice, a choice to nourish, move, and believe in your ability to change. So today, take that step. Choose one healthy habit, one nourishing meal, one gentle movement. Your strongest, most vibrant self is within reach. Remember, your journey to strength and confidence can start right now.